You're listening to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. Earlier this week, Duke women's basketball head coach Kara Lawson was announced as the head coach for the U.S. women's national team. Kara Lawson has a lot of history with the U.S. women's national team. To talk about it, to talk a bit about why this decision was made, let's go ahead and turn now to WRAL sports reporter Pat Welter. Pat, thanks for joining us.
Lewis, what's going on, man? Good to be here. Although this is, I'm used to being on the Triangle and Two podcast, which is very sports heavy. I feel like I should kind of slip into more of a gentle podcast news tone.
That's
for
good.
This one. You like that kind of dulcet kind of tone?
That's
very
perfect.
Just kind of, yeah, we're going to talk basketball today.
We
Kara
are.
Lawson.
We are. Very, very important conversation. So, like I said, she's the women's national team head coach, which really kind of comes as no surprise. What's Kara Lawson's background with the U.S. women's national team?
Yeah, I mean, she has been an assistant for the most recent Olympics. She has won gold with the 3-on-3 team. She has won gold as a player. So this is a person that has a lot of experience with Team USA. They actually gave her first coaching opportunity. This is a player that, Kara Lawson's been in the spotlight for as long as we can remember.
Right.
Sue Bird actually brought up today, there was an article in Sports Illustrated for Kids of her playing football, something I'm not entirely familiar with. I'll have to go back and read it. But this is an athlete that's been in the spotlight for a long time, played at Tennessee, played in the WNBA, got her start coaching with Team USA, went to the Celtics, gets the 3-on-3 opportunity, comes here to Duke, and now things are coming full circle where she's got the big job, the job that she calls the greatest job you can have.
Right. And that's, listening to Kara Lawson talk about basketball in general, she has a lot of reverence for the national team. She has a lot of reverence for the international side of the game. You mentioned Sue Bird, WNBA star over the years. She's now one of the heads of the U.S.
Managing Director is her official title.
Managing Director, there you go. So what was she doing today? What was she doing on Tuesday? You were at an event. She spoke. What was going on there?
Yeah, this was a heck of an event. This was probably a bigger deal than I even necessarily realized just on the surface level. Because, when you work here in the Triangle, you're so kind of caught up in the college teams. Team USA isn't necessarily my beat. But wow, Duke really went all out for this one. Just an incredible setup. It was open to the public. And you want to know about the kind of impact Kara Lawson has had in the basketball community. All you had to do was look around the room. Jim Phillips from the ACC was there. Sue Bird was there on stage in her capacity as managing director. Jay Billis was emceeing this. Brad Stevens from the Celtics, who gave her a coaching opportunity as assistant with the Celtics. So the list kind of goes on and on. Then there was a lot of her old high school teammates, even college teammates, WNBA teammates. It was an incredible turnout, and an incredible amount of support for Kara Lawson. And yeah, Sue Bird is the one essentially making this decision. And the reason she said she did it was that experience. I mean, this is a job that in theory should go to the best women's coach in the world, in the country. And you're taking that from the college level, which is interesting because this is WNBA players. But I think Lawson, and you've covered her, she is a person that commands the room, that is so in control with her message and her vision that she's certainly going to be able to command that room full of the best women's players in the world. And she can speak to it firsthand. She's won a gold medal. She's played on this team, and she's been coaching in the system for a long time.
Right, exactly. And she's someone who it's very clear has that respect in women's basketball in the United States, whether it's past, present, or future. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break there. When we come back, we're going to talk what this means for Kara Lawson, for Duke, and for the future of U.S. women's basketball. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. We're talking about Duke women's basketball head coach Kara Lawson, who was just named the head coach of the U.S. women's national team. Remember, the Olympics are coming up in just a few years, 2028, in Los Angeles. So kind of put that all into perspective here as we prepare and speak more on this. Pat Welter returns. Pat, so when you looked at just the way Kara Lawson spoke on this, the phrasing you mentioned was that this is the greatest job that a coach can have. How much do you think this means to her in the conversations you've had with people in the Duke community?
I mean, she doesn't necessarily strike me as an emotional person when I've covered her, and maybe that was a mistake or a misreading on my part, because she certainly coaches with a ton of fire and is one of the most competitive people I've ever seen. But I had not seen this side of her. And now, we got to speak to her before she was announced, about 10:30 this morning. We're recording this on Tuesday. And, we got to talk to her first. And I asked her, the first person to ask her about the national team honor, and her whole tenor of her voice changed. She almost whispered, almost in a way that I think it was just the gravity of it in saying the words out loud. Like, I'm sure she had, I give her a softball question. What does it mean? How does it feel, basically, right? But like, I'm sure she'd rehearsed in her head maybe what she would say. And then when the words were actually coming out, you could see the emotion. And I kind of tried to ask, like, hey, I noticed you kind of changed almost your whole posture answering that question. Where's that coming from? And she just talked about, like, this is the greatest job you can have, the greatest honor. And I was like, well, is that pressure weigh on you? And she's like, I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it as the pressure of the nation. I look at it as the support of the nation. So we got to talk to her there in the setting with just some local reporters. And then we saw her on the stage with friends, family, her mom, her sister, her father, who's not with us, unfortunately passed away. She said how proud he would be, and that probably colored some of the emotion she was having up there. But she cried. She broke out tissues. She made some jokes about it. Before she even spoke, she kind of broke down and needed, about 10 seconds to kind of gather herself. So that was pretty powerful to see someone be that vulnerable up on stage, someone that's accomplished so much, having kind of the humility and just overwhelming of emotions to just let it wash over them. This is a big deal.
Now, for those who may not be super familiar with how a lot of these different basketball coaching situations work, right? Kara Lawson, this is not the first time we've had a college coach on the national team level. In fact, it's not the first time we've had triangle coaches coach, at the national team level. Who are some of the other folks that jump to mind, and what kind of legacy does Kara add to this mix?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the the WNBA recently has had a surgence. I mean, it should be the best league in the world, right? It's the best players, but college basketball is on the women's side is really where the legends have been made in the coaching world. You think about Gino Auriemma, who has coached this team, Dawn Staley, who is probably the current best women's basketball coach out there at South Carolina, going back to NC State's Kay Yao, and then one that means so much to Kara Lawson is Pat Summitt, who coached her at Tennessee, is one of, some would maybe say, the best women's college basketball coach ever. She passed away a few years ago. And yeah, Kara just talked about how much that would mean for Pat to see her up there following this legacy. So yeah, it's quite the brotherhood, the sisterhood of names to do this. And then of course you have Coach K,
right,
on the men's side. So what an accomplishment for Duke that now they can sell themselves as this, and it's kind of coincidence, but it's also a pretty cool thing. And they actually had Coach K record a video to start off the ceremony today. He wasn't there in person, but he voiced over and made a video, and that was another nice element. Duke doesn't mess around with the production.
No, they do not. Now, we've talked about what this means for Kara and that emotional impact just as a coach, as a player who's gone through this program. But she is first and foremost the head coach of Duke women's basketball, and I imagine this would probably help them as they continue to build their program from a recruiting perspective. What does something like this do for, Duke in general, whether it's men's or women's, in what they want to do and build as a program?
It's definitely a marketing pitch. If I was a recruit, would it be like the number one selling point to me? No, not necessarily, but it's one of, right? I mean, I know like Bill Simmons, who we both listen to, a famous podcast, NBA personality, always talks about how much he values players playing for the national team and kind of what you get out of that, competing against the best of the best. I mean, we heard about Cooper Flagg competing with Team USA and showing right away that he could compete at the NBA level. So it's kind of like the best of the best in a way. Like it's like this elite club you get to be in. So from a marketing perspective, from a recruiting perspective, Kara can share that with players coming in that, hey, I work with the best in the world and I can help get you there. And you think about the momentum that Duke has. I mean, we were in a peak time for women's basketball at the NBA and the college level. And right here in the triangle with UNC, NC State, and Duke all really competing at the highest level. They're not quite there. NC State made the Final Four the other year. Duke, they've been on a good trajectory here. Second round, Sweet 16. Last year, the Elite Eight, and they lose by 4 to South Carolina in a game that, there was times when you thought they were going to win that one. So they are right there. They're knocking on it. But, talking to Lawson today a little bit about the season, too. Like, they're not taking any of that for granted. Momentum doesn't actually carry over, but Duke certainly has it, and this is just another piece.
I remember talking to Kara Lawson before the 2024 Olympics. She was an assistant coach on the team. One thing she mentioned was that, in those moments, she almost feels like there's a duty to go out and become a better head coach with these national team stages, because it's it's the peak, it's the ultimate, like you mentioned, it's the best players in the world competing against each other on the biggest stage. So we'll definitely be interested to see how all of that comes together for her and for Duke. If people are interested in watching the national team, what are some of the big dates we should kind of keep in mind over the next few years, Olympics and things like that?
Well, they have a World Cup in Germany coming up. Obviously, the Olympics is in LA in 2028. And, something that's interesting about coaching the national team is there's just not a lot of time they get with these players. And Lawson talked about that already. So what was the big storyline last time? That Caitlin Clark wasn't on the team?
Yeah.
So I think in 2028, I think we're pretty safe to say that Caitlin Clark will be on the team. Some of the other big stars of women's college basketball. What a moment to be the coach. Like, I imagine by 2028, if this momentum continues with women's basketball, this might be the most viewed women's Olympic team ever.
The trajectory is just up and up and up for women's basketball as a whole. That's WRAL sports reporter Pat Welter joining us. Pat, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.